Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Legends of 40k. And doing Necrons again, we're going to be talking about Trazyn the Infinite in this video, so let's get right to him. He's 175 points, weapon skill and ballistic skill of 4, strength and toughness of 5, 3 wounds, initiative of 2, 3 attacks, leadership 10, 3 plus save. He's unique, he's infantry, he has the Empathic Obliterator and Mind Shackle Scourge as war gear. He has special rules of Ever Living, Excellent, another piece for the collection, independent character, Faerun, reanimation protocols, surrogate hosts, and he can take a Catacomb Command Barge as a dedicated transport. So, special rules wise, and war gear wise, that's unique to him, he has the Empathic Obliterator. If Trazyn kills one or more enemies in close combat, the Empathic Obliterator unleashes a sonic shockwave. This occurs after all blows have been struck, but before the assault results are determined. To resolve the sonic shockwave, roll a d6 for every model in the combat, friendly and enemy, with exactly the same name on their characteristic profile as the model slain by Trazyn in that phase. So we'll get to the examples in a moment. If a score is 4 or more, that model suffers a wound. Armor saves are taken as normal. So basically, you're rolling a d6 for every model in the combat that's friendly and enemy with exactly the same name on that characteristic profile. For example, if Trazyn slew a Space Marine Sergeant, you roll for all other Space Marine Sergeants in the combat. If Trazyn slew an Orc Boy, you would roll for all other Orc Boys in the combat for that phase. Wounds caused by the Sonic Shockwave count towards the assault result. Excellent, another piece for the collection, means Trazyn is a scoring unit and can claim objectives. Surrogate hosts. If Trazyn is removed from play as a casualty, roll a d6. On a score of 1, remove Trazyn from play as normal. If the score is 2 or more, randomly choose another model from all friendly Lich Guards, Cryptex, Necron Lords, and Overlords on the table, not counting special character versions of any of the above. Remove the nominated model from play as a casualty, and return Trazyn to play in its place. His remaining wounds are now equal to the number of wounds the removed model had remaining. Trazyn only awards kill points once he has been slain and does not return. Models removed because they have been replaced by Trazyn award kill points as normal. So, before we talk about my thoughts on his entry and using him in a game, my thoughts on his model. And I like his model a lot. He's up there as one of my favorite Necron HQ models, with Anarch here still being number 1. He's a cool model. I like the hood thing he has going on. I like his pose. His pose isn't the heroic wide-legged stance that you normally see. It's kind of hunched forward, like he's looking for something mid-stride, inquisitive, stuff like that. It's a great Necron model to represent a generic Necron Overlord. If you want to just run a generic HQ, but like this model, it can work no problem. His staff can be the Staff of Light, it can be a War Scythe, it can be anything else except the Gauntlet of Fire, basically. And he just looks cool with his cape and the trinkets he has. Very fitting for Trazyn. So, cool model. Now, about his entry. I think for his point cost, he's well point costed. He lacks an invulnerability save, but it's not as big of a deal for an independent character to have an invulnerability save anymore. Still is always nice to have. In my opinion, the most technologically advanced race, the Necrons, are that. Basically, I should say, in a non-butchered sentence, the Necrons are the most technologically advanced race in 40k, hands down. I don't see why nobody of status, I don't see why anybody, I should say, of status and importance would not have an invulnerability save in such a technologically advanced robotic species. So that's just my opinion. But he doesn't have one, but it's not a game breaker. It's not a deal breaker. He's fine without it. So, with that being said, how would I use him in the game? Well, firstly, if I want to run Trazyn as Trazyn, run him as a special character that he is, I would build a list all the way around him. Basically, put him down and then build everything around that. I don't normally do that with HQs, but Trazyn, in my opinion, is a very unique type of HQ, and therefore, you kind of need to do that with him. His surrogate host rule can be very useful to you, and I think if you build a list that has the shooting strength the Necrons are famous for, and maximizes his surrogate hostness as best you can, I think you're going to have a very nice list for Trazyn that can be a thorn in your opponent's side pretty easily. With that said, he is a Faerun, so he definitely is beneficial to put into a squad, preferably a shooting squad. Now, if you don't want to put him with a shooting squad, I'd put him with Lich Guard. Just protect. If you didn't want to put him with that, but I would put him with Immortals or even Necron Warriors or whatever it is, and go about your business that way. Now, one thing I would do though is I would think about putting him with a Lich Guard squad or whatever, and just assaulting Horde. Now, granted, Lich Guard are better at dealing with elite enemy infantry and HQs, but Trazyn's very good at dealing with Horde in close combat, and pretty much he can only really do stuff in close combat anyway. And the reason he's good with dealing with Horde is in the Empathic Obliterator. You probably realized that when I gave you the examples of the Spaceman Sergeant, not very useful. But when he kills an Orc Boy, his staff becomes very useful. And this is very handy. This is something that's pretty cool, because Horde tend to be bad armor saves. And that's great for Trazyn because he doesn't have any way of ignoring any armor. So, as long as he lands a blow, which is why he definitely needs to be supported in an assault with a squad, because of Necron's naturally low initiative, as long as he lands that blow, it's gonna be a nice hit against your opponent if they're running a Horde army, because they're probably gonna fail the armor save. It's not guaranteed, but it's a very high probability of that happening. So they're gonna fail an armor save, and then Trazyn's staff blows up. Basically, the sonic shockwave happens, which can really decimate a squad. It has the potential to basically almost level an entire enemy squad. Very useful. You can definitely think about different assault ways of assaulting enemy squads to put this into good use. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that he is scoring. He can claim objectives. You know this. Your opponent's going to know this, because your opponent's going to see your army list, going to ask you what Trazyn does, and you're going to tell him. But you know this. You're going into the game knowing this. You got a strategy built around this. Your opponent just found out. It's a good chance it's not going to stick. Even with very veteran players out there who've been playing for a while and pretty good competitively, it's not always going to stick. There's going to be a lapse. They may have it in the back of their mind, but it's not going to be something that they're going to keep in mind for every decision they make. It's just not going to happen that way. Even in a very high stakes game with a very good player, that is going to be something that they're going to try and keep in mind, but they just... there's going to be a momentary lapse on that, like a turn where they just forgot, or a turn in which it just wasn't prevalent in their mind, and then after they did everything and moved on to the next phase, it'd be, oh man, I forgot he could do that, so I left something wide open, or I forgot he could do that now, this was not as useful, or something like that. So, that special rule of claiming objectives is nice. It's not normal for an HQ to do that. Therefore, it's kind of another advantage you have for dealing with objective-based games, because now you can be kind of pushy with Trazyn because of surrogate hosts, and you can clear out objectives with Trazyn attached to a squad, and before you know it, he's claiming it, and your opponent's like, oh right, he can do that, I forgot. So it's just another handy thing to have. And that's really it to talk about Trazyn. I think he can make a very cool Necron army list, and it makes for interesting tactics, because the tactics I would employ with him, or somebody else would employ with Trazyn, maybe two different tactics entirely, and I think they're different from the normal tactics you would employ for a Necron force. It's going to have a bit of a different composition because of surrogate hosts, if you choose to maximize that, and just between his Empathic Obliterator, surrogate hosts, and his ability to claim objectives, you have this weird tactic that you can, or tactics you can employ with him, that I think not everybody's going to expect, and it makes him a bit difficult to explain, because he's more in the moment, I feel. Like, he's more of a special character where you have certain ideas going into it, but it really depends on what's on the board, where your opponent is, where objectives are, for what you're going to do with him. But with surrogate hosts, he's very survivable, which is very nice. So you can be a little bit more brash with him, you know, test the waters a bit. And if he gets blown up by an enemy tank, well, he's somewhere else now, more than likely, unless you're me, in which you'll roll a 1 anyway. But if you're not me, you will roll that 2 or better, and he'll come back right quick. I think he has a bit of a better comeback rule than St. Celestine, to be honest with you. It's a little different, a little bit more situational here, but it's very nice. Now, one thing I will say is Necron Overlords, as a generic HQ, are pretty cheap. If you're able to afford to add a secondary HQ in there, do that with them. Definitely do that with them. Don't really upgrade them at all. Just keep him with the squad, keep it safe, because if he dies, Trazyn I mean, and you randomly select that Necron Overlord, Trazyn comes back with all of his hit points, all of his wounds. Yep, I just went to hit points, I don't know why, but all of his wounds. Anyways, just something to think about. There's a lot of different combos, if you will, quote unquote, that you can do with Trazyn. There's a lot of different ways you can implement surrogate hosts if you plan to maximize that. And really, I think Trazyn's a special character that if you don't really plan to give him a decent amount of surrogate hosts, and you don't really plan around his Obliterator and pretty much plan around his special rules and war gear, he's not worth taking. He's a special character that is really, in my mind, in my own opinion, it's not fact, it's just opinion here, but I really think he's a special character in which you need to have a complete strategy and idea and list built with him specifically in mind. You can't just replace a Necron HQ and expect him to really shine. Anyways, that's it for Trazyn the Infinite. He's a cool model, and he's a pretty cool special character. He's definitely very, very fluffy, and I like his fluff. He's a very eccentric collector with super science tech, so it makes it a little weird, but cool. And with that in mind, if you do plan to take him, be prepared to build a list around him and be prepared to make some tweaks, especially if you have a Necron army list already, but you decide to try Trazyn out. He may not seem that good if you're just trying him out that way. You're going to definitely have to build around him a bit. And he's one of the few special characters in 40k in general, I feel, that really needs to be built around, instead of just having him and supplementing your army to represent, let's say a special character is very good at shooting. Well, you may want to supplement around that a little bit to give some close combat punch, or if you have a special character that's super hyper aggressive in close combat, you're going to want a way to get him in there and support him in there with your army, but you're not necessarily building a full list and tactic around that. And with Trazyn, I think you're building more of a list and tactic around him specifically, if that made any sense. Anyways, feel free to disagree, that's fine. I probably lost some of you in my weird ramblings there with Trazyn, but point is that he's not really that points heavy for what he can do with the potential he has. It's just that his potential and what he can do won't really shine unless you're building a list to really support what he can do and really encompass what he can do. He's a good example of a special character that you look at him and you think, well, what's the benefit of taking him? And then if you saw him in action and used properly, you would see the benefit. Anyways, that's it for Trazyn the Infinite. Another cool character and cool model. Probably way more situational than the other Necron special characters. In my mind, I don't think he'd probably see that much actual play in comparison to other special characters from the Necron Codex. But anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do next. If you have a request, feel free to leave in the comments section for a special character. If I didn't do it already, I might do him next. And if I did him already, I'll let you know. Anyways, that's it. And until next time, take it easy.